Good evening. It's Monday, January 6, 2025. Happy New Year, everyone. This is a meeting of the Southborough Planning Board. The planning board is now in session. The first item on the agenda is a discussion item, proposed accessory dwelling unit bylaw and regulations.
Would you like me to give a quick update?
That would be fabulous.
Okay. So at one of the prior planning board meetings, where town council attended, I believe it might have been November 4th, 2024, town council said that he would go ahead and prepare a draft accessory dwelling unit bylaw based on the state's new law. And so on December 18th, we received that draft copy and we provided it to the planning board members. It's also in the meeting packet. And we also sent it to Lara Davis to submit to the ZBA members as well. We also received, give me one second. We received some comments on that draft from Mike Robbins, who's here this evening, a member of the ZBA. In addition, Doris Cahill, also a ZBA member, provided comments on the draft. And we had a question from Al Hamilton that we answered, that Mimi actually answered about the MGL 40A, Chapter 150, Section 7 and 8 of the Acts of 2014. And then we also received comment email from Jamie Meath from 11 Lovers Lane, who is a ZBA member, but was commenting as a resident. And I don't know if you were able to get a copy of that. Okay, good. And then I also wanted to point out that the comment period for the regulations 760 CMR that was provided, the draft regulations from EOHLC, they have a comment period that's currently open and it ends on the 10th, which is this Friday at noon, because they have a public hearing Friday afternoon on this. And I sent a link out, an email with a link, and it's also in the references on the Dropbox. It's an online comment form. And then the actual public hearing at EOHLC is a Zoom meeting as well. I believe it's hybrid, but you can zoom into it if you want to comment. But we'll need comments if there are any to provide through the online link. And that brings us to tonight. With all this information, I can also tell you that we'll be putting legal ad to the newspaper on Wednesday for next Monday's publication and the following Monday. So we can open a public hearing on January 27th to start the public hearing process required for zoning amendments. That brings us to tonight.
Thank you. Should we start with regulations? Or do you want to start with the bylaw? Start with regulations. Any comments on regulations?
Well, I was just looking at the bylaw. So,
okay. Let's start with the bylaw. Any comments on the bylaw?
well, yeah, since Mr. Robbins, thanks for joining us this evening. I believe I'm looking at your responses.
Sure.
Michael, and let's see. One of them, well, let's start with the setback. Was that your comment?
I think that's Doris.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. It says,
Don't worry about it.
it's labeled as Mike M. Robbins revisions.
I might have revised another copy and
Okay.
resent things, so.
Well, so why don't, well, I guess I would like to raise the question about the setbacks. Does maybe Karina, can you speak to this as far as the notion that the state intent is for the ADU to not be
Subject to?
no portion thereof shall be closer to the front lot line than the primary building? I'm looking at number 5 in section C, dimensional requirements.
Yeah, so I think Mr. Robbins commented on that.
I
and
thought,
I
yeah,
did-
okay,
I
so that
did-
was
I did
you.
make a
Doris
comment about
commented
that.
on that and Jamie commented on that.
Yeah.
So we've had 3 comments.
So
on
maybe,
that.
can we hash that out now?
Sure.
So Robbins, you want to take that one?
So, again, I think the majority, and it's just my thought on it. I think the majority of ADUs for most people are going to be adding a living space to the existing property, and it's going to be less likely to have detached ADUs. Well, there'll be some certainly, but I think most people are going to put an apartment above maybe a garage or basement apartment, something to that extent. I mean, that's the perception kind of at large. And so if you had a large piece of property, let's say you own 3 or 4 acres in Southborough and your house was set back from the road, why, if you wanted to have a detached ADU, why couldn't that be in front of the house per se? It just seems to me to be like, it just doesn't seem to be a restriction that makes sense. Again, like on my house, for example, on Deerfoot Road, the ADU would be in the road. So it just doesn't make practical sense. And I think most people would probably, depending on how their lot is configured, probably have the ADU if it's a detached either on the side or in the back. But let's say it's for a handicapped parent and they need better access to the street, sidewalk, what have you, that ADU's location in the front of the yard, I just don't see a reason to make a blanket. We shouldn't have an ADU in the front of the yard. Well, why not? And again, if it's that homeowner's property, why should we be telling them they can't build something on their own land to that degree? They need to build an in-law for a disabled family member, and that house just, if the ADU and the way their driveway is cut makes more sense to be in the front yard as opposed to the backyard. I just don't think that there should be a restriction.
Well, I mean, it seems my counter to that would be the intent is for it to be a truly accessory unit and not another detached constructed unit.
Oh, it can be though.
It can be.
Well,
detached.
but accessory meaning, with it's smaller.
Yeah.
It's, secondary. It's not supposed to create a 2-unit property,
But it is.
accessory.
It's accessory, but all single-family houses pursuant to the law can now be. Oh, sorry. All single-family homes now can effectively become a 2-family house. You can call it an
I'm
accessory.
not sure that I'm seeing it exactly the same way, but we
So-
plenty of time to hash this out.
No, but the law is really, and the regulations are really clear on this.
Okay,
Could I just add a little insight to that, Jesse, since you're on the topic?
yeah,
So I was thinking about that. And right now you can have an an ADU as part of your existing house. So if you were to build an addition on your house, you could put an addition on your house without encroaching on the front setback.
right.
And that addition could essentially become an ADU
Yep.
in that building. So I'm not sure, just food for thought.
And it could go out.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
You could have an as opposed to a standalone, ADUs are also part of an existing house. It can be like an addition to a house, attached. So there's conflict there, I think, somewhere in this discussion that you can't prohibit someone from adding on to their house if it's not encroaching on the setback, as long as they have a building permit, right? And then they could put the ADU in there. As opposed to everyone's first thought is always, here's this small mini house that's getting plopped into the front yard. And so you'll have like a row of houses and each house will have a second little mini house in the front of each yard.
Well, that is also possible.
That's possible.
It is possible. It's just not most people aren't going to want to do that.
No, but there's people with long driveways.
And
That would make
and I
sense.
think that's where it makes sense.
So I wanted to tell you that that actually came up as a question today on the planners listserv. And everybody was asking it. Nobody really knew, but there was some sort of benefit that they thought could be had by allowing it.
Allowing,
This
It-
is just the planners talking. It's just,
Oh,
not-
yeah. I'm involved in lots of discussions on this, and it's just kind of the same thing. It's what makes sense for kind of the shape of the lot. if you put your house in the back corner of the lot, if you say, well, we're not going to allow ADUs on the front portion of the lot, well, it's going to be a protected ADU. And I think that town bylaws are going to run afoul of the law if we say, hey, we're just not going to allow ADUs in the front of, essentially in the front of the house.
Yeah, I take your point. So town council put that in there and I don't know why. So I would suggest asking him why it's there.
It'll be
Unless
interesting.
there are any
'cause
other comments on
the
that.
state is populating its own draft bylaws that are going to be due out in the next, it'll be after the comment period. So they're going to be populating proposals that towns can, like basically a template that towns can use that are going to be in conformity with the Commonwealth. So those are going to be coming out hopefully sooner than later. But
So I was actually had a question also about the requirement for a parking space, but did you?
Can we
want to
talk
comment
about
on
this
it?
one?
Yeah, let's,
Sorry, go ahead, Barney.
Yeah, just my only comment is, we've put so much, well, maybe not, maybe we've designed homes, they've been developments that have certain number of homes have to go through planning board. We've always kind of established this. We work with contractors and they build lots out. And my only comment about this is like, what if we open that door and every single house in that cul-de-sac puts a little mini house in front? Is that really what we want? Because I think once you open the door, while most people might not do it, you have no idea. If there's an opportunity to take advantage and there's income that you can get because you now have an accessory unit that you can rent out.
I think that's the purpose of the law, is to provide affordable housing. And I think that's the problem that towns are going to run into if they try to craft bylaws that are going to run contrary to the proposed and intended law for the creation of accessory dwelling units.
But if we allow nothing in the front, I don't think that necessarily.
So just for a hypothetical, again, if I built my house in the back of my lot and I have no other place to put an ADU, now the town bylaw, for me, I would immediately bring an action against Southborough and saying this is discriminatory. Because the way my lot is configured, this bylaw is removing a right that I have as a property owner pursuant to Mass General Law.
Yeah, it's a very good point. I think,
know,
yeah.
I think that, that's the overall, I understand the goal of planning and I understand that purpose, but the state's overriding need for housing is the issue. It just goes back to 40B. It goes back to, listen, if the towns get to control this aspect, we're just not going to have affordable housing. Hence the very broad kind of top down. I'm not saying it's correct or incorrect. I'm just saying from a legal perspective, if I have a lot and I have no place else for my ADU other than the front of the house and this bylaw is there, I'm bringing an action.
But you could potentially put in a permit to expand your house and get it that way.
Yeah, but
that's what I would
I shouldn't
probably
prefer. need to though.
Mm, I get it. I think it's worth having a conversation.
Mr. Bartolini, you'll have to go up to a microphone, either up here or,
Go through the board first.
So do
oh,
you want to finish up with the board before? Mr. Bartley?
1 second, Mr. Bartolini. Anyone else on this?
So I had some of the same concerns as Marnie said. So I understand that there are houses in Res A that have huge lots, but if you start looking at some of the Res B lots on the south side of town specifically, a lot of the lots are under 1/3 of an acre. So if you start building an accessory unit and taking the setbacks away, you're going to totally change the nature potentially of, the neighborhoods. And again, you don't know what you don't know. And that's my concern as well. I have a small lot. And
Just as a point of order, no one's talking about removing the setbacks, to my knowledge. They have to be consistent with front, rear, and side setbacks. I'm referring to the proposed that no portion of the ADU shall be closer to the front line than the primary dwelling. So it still has to meet front, side, and rear setbacks, but the restriction that says, the blanket prohibition that says you can't have an ADU in, basically in the front of the house, I think is inherently problematic from a legal standpoint.
Okay.
But this doesn't change front, side, and rear setbacks. So if the property doesn't conform with front, side, and rear setbacks, for example, it's no longer considered legally a protected ADU. That applicant can then apply for either a special permit or variance. But under the statute as currently drafted in the proposed regulations, a protected ADU can't be infringed upon. The regulations are really clear that towns cannot put unreasonable regulations on ADUs. And if there are, that those regulations are going to be deemed voided by the state. So there's just some contrary. I understand the concern, but I also look at it from a homeowner's perspective. If they want to have income, or realistically, I think it's less, especially in a town like Southborough, I think it's more going to be, I need an in-law for my parents, or I need an in-law for my kids. And we have a right under the state pursuant to these laws. And it's about being in conformity with the state and not putting us up to constant litigation.
No, I get that. I've read a lot about this from different towns, and somewhere I had read about the setbacks. So
No, the setbacks,
yeah. Somebody's talking about doing that, but
no, that's no longer a protected ADU. So there's two classes, protected and
Right.
unprotected.
Yeah.
If they want to build something within the setbacks, that would be an unprotected ADU and subject to site, all the site requirements that we typically have in place already.
okay, that's it.
Mr. Bartolini.
Well, when I read this, am I on here? When I read this, I thought that you were talking about the setback and not the house itself. But we've had this on our books for a long time for the special permit. How many have built in the front yard? How much? has
Well,
this been a
so what's
problem?
on the books now, it has to be part of the existing primary dwelling. Whereas
It
this
really doesn't
allow,
Say too much about. It's
In
pretty
our-
simple, as 4 bullets, you got to pass them, and if you do, you're going.
no, I mean, our code now
Right.
doesn't allow for a accessory dwelling that's separate from the primary residence, like a separate dwelling.
So you're worried about something being completely separate.
Right,
So
which is allowed as a protected
Right, so
ADU.
Karina is right. You can build, so you can take this scenario and you can build a garage in your front of your house,
Yep,
come back after you're done, and then apply for a accessory unit. So you can't really stop or prevent what you're trying to do. But
yeah,
architecturally wise, you may want to enhance. You could put a building out, you could put a front porch on. You can make it more charming if you don't have this in here. You're restricting people from making it architecturally pleasing, trying to blend it in with the neighborhood. We've got septics, people are gonna have pools, people are gonna do things. I just don't know how many would go in the front. I don't think you're gonna get a lot of these, to be honest with you.
That's it.
But they,
yeah.
there's a double-edged sword here. You can prevent it, and then somebody might have a great idea. I'm gonna bump my house out 12 feet. I'm gonna put a 6-foot porch across, and it's gonna look great. And you're not gonna allow them to do it. So,
So I take your point. My only question is, why is it there? Because town council wrote the bylaw, and I'd never seen that before in any of the other sample bylaws. So my only question would be, I think we should just ask town council why that's there and what he's trying to prevent. Sure.
So then there was the question on section D. For all other properties, at least one off-street parking space must be provided for ADUs. I mean, my inclination generally would be to support that requirement, but I think we did have a couple people raise this as a concern. Then I'd be curious to hear what other members of the board have to say about it, or. which way we're leaning on that one.
About the tandem parking, having that.
Correct, yeah, I
Removed.
mean. I don't remember any ADUs coming through here as far as a comment, because we always had to do the comment thing for the ZBA. And I think they've always had off-street parking. It kind of makes sense that you would have a requirement for one off-street parking spot in Southborough, other than within the half mile of the T station. So I'm not sure that I'm agreeing with the feedback that it's discriminatory. But I wanted to kind of raise that for discussion.
Okay.
Can I add to that?
Yep.
I took a look at some of the neighboring towns that have tried to put through some ADU language, knowing that this was coming. Some towns put through definitions, some were changing their old definitions, and several towns made changes having to do with multiple driveways, that there could only be one driveway. And I wonder if it's related to this parking issues, whether or not if you don't have a spot, if you don't allow them to park on the street, you might need a separate driveway. I mean, I think Northborough or Westborough, actually, that was one of the changes that they made. I suppose if you're in a residential neighborhood and now suddenly there's 20 new driveways, that could be very disruptive. I
that's
think it's
exactly it.
related to this, and I'm not exactly sure. I just wanted to get your opinions.
It's two things really. So what a lot of cities and towns that don't have street parking, they specifically don't want multiple curb cuts and multiple driveways. They basically want tandem. And then on the flip side is for families that don't have the resources, space, or utility to place an additional driveway on their lot. They're like, well, wait a minute, like we have tandem now for our family. Why can't we have a tandem space for my father and this accessory dwelling unit? And so it's really twofold. It's how many driveways do you want on a property?
But where does it say it can't be tandem? That's the part I guess I'm missing.
Well, because
So that was deleted out.
that
of
was
there.
deleted. So the suggestion was, the proposed was, but the parking space may not be a
Well-
tandem space.
Okay, I mean, that's fair. So what
So I
if,
struck that.
right, what if there had to be a parking spot, but it could be tandem?
Oh, then I think that's
what-
that's
what-
fine.
That's what Mike's
Okay.
saying.
That's what I'm saying. I think that the
Okay,
without a tandem, it's two things. Now you're going to have multiple driveways, more asphalt, more impervious space. And if you don't allow tandem, it's going to force people to spend additional money on additional parking when, hey, if you want to do the car shuffle, that's on you.
okay, but you're okay with there being a requirement for a parking spot?
Oh, God, yeah.
All right,
No.
got it. Thank-
Yep. No, that's a reasonable, absolutely reasonable.
Anyone else on tandem? Yeah, I tend to agree with Mike on that one. And this is another thing put in by town council. So I would, would just
I think
ask.
this is just more of, hey, here's a balloon, let's throw it up
Yep.
and work through some
Yep.
things.
Well, I
think
just
Debbie
wanna-
Debbie's point is exactly right too. Just like some places don't want to have tandem and some people are like, wait a minute, we need to have.
well, I'd rather have one driveway. and
That's
tandem
exactly
park.
right.
Yeah.
Because now you're going to multiple cuts.
Well, I just want to make sure there isn't some unintended consequence that he was trying to guide from
That I
that we
don't
don't
have.
realize.
Jay's a smart guy, so
Yeah.
we can definitely ask him about these.
Yeah. That's
And I
all
would
I
even
would.
take it so far as to say you can't have multiple cuts.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
that's.
See, exactly, like that's
because
why
that's
I
what our
read it. I'm
neighboring
like, wait a
towns are
minute, well,
doing.
like,
They're striking that from their bylaws.
you can just see someone that feels more like now I'm adding additional housing. You have your driveway, I have my driveway, and it's just,
Don't need it.
don't need it.
No more impervious.
But that's exactly it.
Yeah.
So
Can I just clarify? So to that point, to add no more cuts, is that something we should be positioning in the language? Somewhere under that section D?
I think so.
Yeah, I would agree. I actually didn't think about that until you just said that.
I'm just following other towns and looking, what are they striking now? that the
Yeah.
Law's going through because they're living with it. Some of them have had by right, by, or by permit. Yeah, I have a couple others too when you're done, Marnie.
Just speaking to that, I believe there was a comment from DPW director about excessive driveway cuts. There was a comment
I didn't see that.
Um,
Yeah, if you can't
think
forward
it
that
was
to
a
me, I'd be
couple
curious.
meetings ago. He had submitted that. I think it's in, let me just.
No, I'd be curious to see that.
I think it's in the job.
What a shock.
Um,
No, it just.
So no additional driveways? That's what we're thinking of adding?
That's what I'd like.
Wait a minute. Driveways is different than curb cuts.
Yeah,
No additional driveway means you have what, so take Jesse's house, which I'm familiar with. He's got a straight driveway goes in and out, not to pick on you. You're a 15,000 square foot lot. My father built his house. So
I think he
go
built
in.
mine too.
Well-
go in. Yeah.
Yeah.
father. So,
But I thought, because I was just thinking the same thing, like my driveway goes like this, and then I would theoretically
put
have
one
to
over.
like just pave over my
you have
front
two
yard.
spaces.
Yep,
So if your wife parks this way and you park this way, you're already in tandem.
right.
If you want to move over and add 10 feet or 8 feet is all you really need to the side. So you say no more new driveways. Now you can't do what you want to do.
Right.
I think
you-
curb
you-
cut.
Yeah, we were talking about
additional
curb cut driveways. not
Additional curb
necessarily-
cut for a driveway.
Not necessarily just adding, because to me, we do need to give people leeway to just pave a portion of their land.
And,
Yes.
and just
Correct.
for someone who spent the better part of 30 years in Newport, Rhode Island, where there is no parking and tandem parking is absolute necessity. We want to be mindful of what happens in Newport. They don't allow extra curb cuts, but they do allow you to go wider, just to have more of an hourglass for egress. So you just, if we're crafting language for someone who knows firsthand how important it is to have a little bit of a wider mouth
Yep.
for the driveway and cuts. I think from what I'm understanding, the board wants to limit completely separate driving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So no additional curb cuts for a driveway.
no additional, but maybe expanded. We just want to make it clear for like DPW and anybody else, if they want to cut. Do they need permission to cut to
Some
make it
places-
wide?
Some places.
Yeah, so
some
if
places.
I
Alright.
may,
Depends where it
I can just read the 3 comments from Bill Cundiff, DPW director, if you'd like me to do that. Yeah. So, this was earlier in December. Please consider the following in any bylaw or regulations developed. I'll start with number 3 because that's the subject. If the ADU requires change of the driveway at the road or a new driveway opening, the applicant will need to file a curb opening permit pursuant to Town Code Section 152-5, curb and cut permit required restoration bond. The other 2 comments were water service connections. The water department will only invoice the property owner, but not a tenant. Even if the property owner wants a separate meter to the unit, the water department has a rule that each meter has a separate water service with a separate curb stop in the right of way. In the event water is shut off for non-payment or a lien put on the property for an outstanding fee, the appropriate service connection is shut off. The lien will be against the property. And the last one was, we have no municipal sewage currently, so wastewater would be handled by Board of Health regulations for on-site disposal of wastewater. So I take it back. He didn't say anything about excessive curb cuts. He just said it would require a curb cut.
I think that's fine.
Okay.
All of those I think are spot on. I don't have an objection because the unit is accessory. So if the water bill's not getting paid, both the principal and the accessory are SOL.
Can I ask a question? How do you envision people using this? Because I get a feeling that You think everybody's going in the apartment business, and I really think most people are the sick, the elderly, failure to launch. That's what's gonna
Totally.
happen. I don't think you're gonna get,
I'm gonna have him living in my barn. TikTok, people, TikTok.
Yeah, I don't think this is replacing apartments. The idea is that it allows additional housing supposedly to single-family dwellings, but that's a question when we talk about regulations. But yeah, for parents or failure to launch.
I don't see, I mean, I've had people call us and everything, and it's usually somebody gets sick. And
Yeah.
the daughter has to come back, or somebody has to come back to take care of somebody. They still want the independence and privacy.
Yeah.
And you really don't want to make it too cost prohibitive for these people to do this.
Yeah.
Because they're gonna
No.
do it whether you get a permit or not, in my opinion. They're just gonna do it.
And I always,
So you're better off having them get the permit and not being so expensive.
I always think back to, I mean, 50 years ago, when your parents got older, you just built an addition to the house.
Right,
Like
yeah.
most of Southborough, if you drive through the town, you can see the 3 generations of house that was built in. So to me, I think it's trying to blend those needs and goals. It's just try to be like, just like Jack said, like, you know, somebody's sick, they have to move in. How do we make this work?
Yeah, or additional income. I
Or
mean,
additional income.
housing is expensive, taxes are getting more
Yeah.
expensive, so that can help alleviate some of that
Biggest changes
pressure
I've
also.
seen in taking houses apart, putting houses back together is a lot of the school, when they buy a house, St. Mark's or Faith School, they divvy it up. The Choate Mansion was gorgeous. It went as much as 9 units. I don't know what it is today. I think it might even back just to the headmaster. It goes back and forth. But the World War II and the Depression really changed and made a lot of these houses so they could do it. It doesn't happen as much as you think. No. It was more back then. So unless there's a real catastrophe.
There's a lot of failure to launch. though.
Yeah, big time.
We're gonna remember
That's why I
that.
mentioned it. Yeah, there is. We could see a clear thing. It's kind of interesting. When my father was building houses, people used to buy houses, they were 21, 22 years old. Now they're like 38, 40.
Yeah.
First house and they, you know, so it's different. They got 2 little kids.
Yeah, it's expensive.
It's expensive.
I don't think it's expensive. I think it's a failure to get out.
Oh, I'm going to be promoting a new online course for millennials to learn how to operate a phone. Hi, my name is Michael. I have a question.
Amy, can I bring up something that Mike touched upon on a pre-existing non-conforming?
Yeah, I have
Are
questions
we gonna
about
get to
that.
or-
Yeah,
I know you
let's-
had questions about
I
it.
do.
Yeah,
Because the
wanna
language
jump
here,
around, but
I
I-
wanted to touch base with Jay on it, but the language that's been populated on pre-existing non-conforming is just, it's ambiguous. Like I've read it like 5 times and I can't understand it.
okay, me too. I mean, you know,
So where is this?
F?
F.
Relationship to non-conformity.
Yeah.
I have a question on E.
okay, you want to do E
E.
first?
Yeah.
Oh. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Shall we continue with this one, Mimi, or do you want to go do E first?
Go in order.
Yeah,
So I had just put a comment on this. And I was just more kind of to Jack's chain of thought. Like, I think a lot are going to be add-ons to existing houses. And this is an open-ended question. Do we do site plans for building single-family homes? And so my concern is, are we going to require ADUs? Let's say if you want to do a build out with a kitchen and a bathroom for an existing house, do we need a site plan for that? It just seems heavy.
so right now we do, like, the site plan is the report from the planning board,
Okay,
and it's not a hearing or it's
Okay.
just a discussion, just to make sure that things work. And my other question was, do we want and your thoughts on this. See, as now we kind of do site plan in that it's a report from the planning board that goes to the ZBA and then you issue the special permit or not, you discuss the special permit. So should the site plan be from the planning board since we do site plan instead of the Board of Appeals?
It would have to be, I think, because alternatively, I think then that would effectively be a special permit, which is specifically prohibited.
Yeah, so this says from the Board of Appeals. So that was my only
That was-
question
I
on
was
that.
gonna- I was gonna have a question here is if you get down here and then all of a sudden it looks like we're back to a special permit. Because now you've got the Board of Appeals. And then at the end, it says the Board of Appeals may request reasonable modifications. But the way you do it now is you write a letter to the ZBA. So why don't you just have the building inspector? Why don't you require the building, give the letter to the building inspector?
Well, that's what this is. It's this abbreviated site plan approval that just looks at certain, because this is a Dover amendment thing. So it's kind of
Yeah.
a Dover amendment site plan, which is
That's exactly
very,
right. That's a
very
good analogy.
restricted in what you can look at.
I didn't know what an abbreviated site plan was, to be honest with
I didn't either. That's
you.
why,
Oh,
that's why I
oh,
flagged it.
So it doesn't.
No, no.
That's why I flagged it was because I just want to make, because I believe, Mimi, you were on the last call with the state that was, maybe you weren't, but they were just like, hey, listen, if you don't require site plan approval for the building of single family homes, you can't create additional requirements for ADUs. So it has to be consistent.
Yeah,
So if you had a single acre property in the right district and you went to the building department for a building permit, do you need site plan review for that?
no.
Then that's where I think,
But we do for, well, sort of in the abbreviated site plan for ADUs now. And a special permit.
yeah, but that's, I think, the inherent challenge. And I think there's that
Well-
question hasn't been fully answered.
So the regulations say that you can require site plan review.
They do, but when I was on the call, the legislature representative was very clear. They go, you can't have two standards. They go, you can have site plan review if you require site plan review to build a single family house.
But I don't think there's any municipality that requires site plan for a single family home.
I don't know that, but it's just,
Is there?
I don't know.
No, I don't think so.
And so I think all I'm taking is what I'm taking away from that call. And there's been a lot of questions about, because the regulations specifically proffer the ability for site plan review, but the rep on the call, this was about 10 days ago. I can't remember when the last call. It was actually more productive than any other call, but they were very clear. They go, you can't have two sets of rules. You have to have one set of rules for the town, because whether it's a single family house or an accessory structure, the same rules need to apply. That's all. But I don't think that's set yet. I'll let
No.
you guys know more on it, but they were very clear on the call that that's,
Oh, I thought that they said if you don't require site plan for accessory dwelling units now, it doesn't make sense to do it for the buyer.
yeah, maybe I was mistaken, but that's what I took away from the call. Those were my notes from being on that call. So
All right. Let's just pretend that they're going to allow it and have it be by the planning board.
yeah,
I have Doris Cahill that would like to make a,
Oh, yeah. Sorry, forgot about
go
that.
ahead, Doris.
No, that's perfectly okay. Doris Cahill, 29 Overlook Drive. Mike, I just want to make sure I'm the only second member on the call before I start to talk, like second ZBA member. Are there any other ZBAs on this?
No.
Okay, okay.
That's John.
no, I don't think we have a quorum.
No, that's what I'm just checking. When I talked to Laura today, just to make sure there's not three of us on the call. So I had handed over a set of notes. I don't know, Mimi, if you
Yeah,
had
we got
received
them.
them.
Lara
Okay,
sent them.
okay, great. So you're going through my points at a different angle. I joined only about 15 minutes ago, so I missed the beginning component.
I think
so
Jesse
I'm-
started by going through your comments.
Okay, thanks a lot. So here we are in planning and site planning. That was my question. on that point too. I'm not, I'm not opposed to as long as it's, doesn't break the mandate. You know, that, I don't want to, as I listened to Jack just a minute ago, that it makes it more complicated for something that's supposed to be by right. Although the oversight would be the better thing, you know, that then we're going to the ZBA if they had to go for special permit and they're back in an abbreviated version for a site plan. It kind of defeats the purpose of expediting or simplifying getting an ADU. That was my comment on that, but I'm not in favor of that. And then on the tandem, I'm in agreement with what everyone's saying, in regards to, I think I couldn't see us mandating no tandem, on a accessory apartment at a single family home. And I agree with the curb break issue. We have curve breaks. Is that what we call them? Semicircle. In my end of town, we have a lot of semicircles, and eventually DPW, if they have to repave, put a sidewalk in, closes them up, because they weren't permitted. I don't know if you're aware that happens. Is everyone laughing about that? That's true.
Yes.
Yeah, we're all laughing.
Okay, I'm not making that one up. We have had special permits come up in front of us, and that's something we have asked for in the past, is to close one of three, I think it was one of three curve breaks. So if we can get that language in, it would be helpful. I didn't think we had a width issue on driveways whatsoever. People widen them, keep a narrow front and widen them up for boomerang. I call them boomerangs. This boomerang generation.
Oh, well, there is boomerang. That's if they leave and come back. If they
That's a boom-
failure to
yeah.
launch, they don't leave. There are two different types.
Okay, boomerang, boomerang. So I just call them all boomerangs. But then the driveway, many widened driveways. I didn't think you have to pull permits for that, but that's just my thought on it.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I don't think so. So it's just language. Maybe it's something we should address, but it's not in other areas of the code on widening. I had some other thoughts, as long as I got you on here, so you don't have to go back and forth. Oh, you may have covered this already, just that I just didn't, I understand why you wouldn't want the ADU in front of the house. But does that make it a greater burden on the person putting the ADU? So, you know, it wouldn't look as good possibly, but I've seen a lot of additions that could become ADUs. They do go in front of the house. They're not out of our lot lines or our offsets or side sets or front sets. So is that something good to put in? Did you
So
talk that out?
We did, and we were in agreement with what you and Mike said. The question was, town council put that in there. We just wanted to make sure that there'd be no unintended consequences if we remove that. So we just wanted to ask him
Okay.
why
was
that
seeing-
was there.
And then I'm sure you addressed my earliest point, which had to do with just, and I've raised this in other meetings, only ADUs, should we be we call these ADUs single family home, single property. I'm fine. I think everyone knows what we mean, but we're gonna have to run it through the code that it's consistent. Yeah, I've brought this up
Doris,
in the
just so you
past.
know, the regulations proposed by the state will define that. They've got that all defined out.
Yeah,
Okay, so they could cover
I
us
Single
on
family
that.
home?
that the primary dwelling.
I was more leaned with that generic labeling, but if the state's gonna regulate it, yeah, primary home. Right, because we have a lot of open code as to what combination, how many people can live in a home to begin with, and I'm glad not to see even though it'd be almost impossible to put more than 2 bedrooms and 900 square feet. You never know how many people are gonna end up in a house. But it's been raised, how many people are really, we have the boomerangs, we have the sick, and people coming back in the home, and those who might wanna rent. I don't, and we don't even have that many existing ADUs in the town. So I'm not really sure ultimately how many they're gonna open up. We get about 3 applications a year, Mike, don't you think? I don't think we can see more than 3 or 4.
Those are the ones we know about.
Yeah, exactly.
So I went a step further with that inquiring. It's difficult to know who else is doing that, right? That's basically, for assessment purposes, for tax assessment purposes. We don't know. All I could do is count cars in the driveways, you know? Yeah, I don't know if we want to be aggressive on that or not. That's not what the meeting's
On the
about.
number of people, I don't think that we can regulate that.
No, not the number of
No.
people, but how many ADUs are really in existence. I don't know how to come up with a.
I
way-
think that's
yeah,
beyond our
Yeah.
jurisdiction.
Yeah,
got
it's
other
totally-
problems.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, we got big problems, but it would be good to flush those up with this ADU, so that they have proper sewer and health and as opposed to what I would consider illegal apartments that could have other issues associated with, mostly for health and safety. I think, I didn't get this, Mike. Did you get this one? The construction of the new garage to serve an ADU should. I'm trying to come up with a scenario. We allow for 3, we only go to special permit for 3-car garages.
What section is that, Doris?
It's 3, but I don't have the upper side. The construction of a new garage to serve an ADU shall require a special permit from the Board of Appeals. That section.
I don't see. where it is.
I'm doing a copy paste off
The
it's
parking,
in there.
number 3.
So D3.
I got a little confused here, Mike.
Oh, am I missing?
No, it's there. The construction of new garage to serve an ADU. So I have a 2-car garage, but that would put me to a 3-car garage. And I'd have to get a special permit anyways. But if I had a single family garage, which is not uncommon, we still have a lot of single garages. And they
Remove-
wanted to construct a new garage, which you'd have to get a permit for.
Oh,
We'd also have to get an AD. I didn't know if we could do that. That was my question. I could open the original document.
So it's a garage and an ADU in a garage?
Now I'm just reading Jay Tollerman's zoning verbatim. It says the construction of a new garage to serve an ADU. Okay, I think I got this now. If someone built a garage solely so they could house the tenant's car, you need a special permit. And we only have special permit if it's a 3rd garage in our current zoning court. So that would make a discrepancy. Am I the only- Did it get stricken between this afternoon or yesterday in this meeting?
No, it was Mike Robbins had a comment in his draft comments of town council's draft.
Yeah, so
So we're starting
here it
out
is.
looking under the draft bylaw prepared by town council, section D3. which
Yeah,
references the construction of a new garage to serve an ADU shall require a special permit from the Board of Appeals. And then Mike Robbins had marked that just a number change in your comments because of the prior
right.
number.
Can Colleen show the most recent version that I think we're all working off of, which is Mike's? Because I think that would
God
be
help us.
helpful.
That's Doris.
if it's been resolved. So my question, Mike, it's fine if you
doesn't seem-
edited my comments to the current form. I'm just, and then I think my points are finished. The construction of a new garage to, solely serve that ADU shall require a special permit. Is it in or out? Or changed? And I'll look at the slide.
Yeah, I've kept it. What do other
Yeah.
people think
I
about?
don't have an issue with that.
Yeah, we kept it.
Okay, so my issue, thank you. So my issue was that we never needed correct me, special permit if I put a second garage. Say I had a single family home and I only had one garage in it, and now unless it's too close to the line, the property line, it doesn't come to us. They just get to pull a permit, I believe. So why would an ADU be different? Why can't they put why do they have to get a special permit to get a second garage? You'd come for special permit if you get a third garage. Can we do that? It's just, can we put this in I'm not fully against it, but can we put it in this new zoning bylaw? Does it complicate it?
Can I ask a question? Is this for the number of cars or is this for the ADU? Is
It's a-
Jay worried about the number of cars on the lot? Because we already have a limit of that, and then you do get a special permit to go above the number of
So it's
cars.
building a new garage for an ADU,
So you've already put the ADU in your house. Is that
or in a house, or it's
You've
an
already got the
accessory
ADU.
dwelling. There's
Now
an,
you want to add a garage to,
for,
because you're just adding.
just to service that ADU.
Well, because it's under parking.
Who cares?
That's
You're
what I
saying,
said.
Why is it under the parking section? Is it pertaining to the additional?
Well, so garages
Right.
usually park cars in them.
How do I don't see the point when we allow who cares who's in the garage? No, if you had to have a
Well,
tenant
I
and you
think it
want to,
depends, if you're building a second garage, it depends on the setbacks and the height, and some garages do require an additional
They
garage,
do.
does require a special permit if it's not
yeah, if it's
attached
too
to the
close, too
house.
tall, too close, right? Right, but not the fact that it's a second garage.
So I just think it's cleaner to just, and if it's unnecessary, we can remove it at a
Yeah,
later
I think
date.
it's unnecessary.
That's where I'm going with it. No more detail. I didn't see why they'd fall the special permit and then it would
Well, I said,
conflict.
in the future, if we find once we're utilizing this, it's unnecessary, then we can remove it.
Yeah, okay. All right,
Well,
so we
here's
could,
the one comment that I have. This is Marnie. So if there's a 900 square foot unit that's built separate, completely separate, and they all of a sudden want a new garage to that, it could happen. I don't think it's okay to build a garage onto the 900 units separate. That's supposed to be an ADU accessory unit. And that's what I think it protects us against.
What if you were to build the garage with the ADU above?
That's
Downstairs
part of
and
the original house. I have no problem with that.
This is the point of
New
having
construction.
some controls built into these things. And just,
I would be,
find it-
yeah, I would be
I don't know
okay
that we
with
need
it.
to go
But we
through.
don't, we allow two garages unless there's another, it would make it discriminatory to the fact that you would only have to get a special permit for the third garage, and you would always go for special permit if it was too tall, too wide, too close. So that was, if we did have it, I'm okay probably with having it if everybody wants to have it. I'm just
I
saying,
don't see
can we have
anything
it?
restricting needing a special permit for a garage. You can't discriminate on the ADU, but I think you could find some. I agree with Doris. I don't think it's needed, but I don't think there's anything in the propagated regulations that prohibit the town from having control over that either.
So that
pretty-
was,
pretty
that was the other
unlikely.
part. Yeah, right. So I agree with that too, Mike. It's really what will make this move through special meeting too. And then add it for problematic, but, it's really what the boards, get consensus
Well,
on.
I think
I
that
don't need, it.
for right now, the planning board wants to keep it. And I think Mr. Murray had some questions she wants to ask.
okay.
Thanks, Doris. I actually two. So one is going back to the pre-existing non-conforming, which I think is F.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I
Mike, I
definitely
would
want
like
to
to
get into
hear
that.
your thoughts, but I mean, as a former ZBA member, I both served together, and I remember town council always kind of saying that, if somebody comes for zoning relief, you should try to correct that pre-existing non-conforming, at least don't make it worse.
Yeah.
And so that is a little bit what I'm afraid of somebody, not in any action from the ZBA, but the thought that, well, I've got a pork chop lot and I can't fit it on anyway, but hey, I have a right to put an ADU and it's already non-conforming, what will happen? What do you see happening?
I think that's a great question. I think we need to provide guidance on this. So there's really two types of ADUs. There's the protected ADU, and that's a 900 square foot, either attached or detached, that's going to be appurtenant to the existing primary use, that has to meet all building code, egress, power, septic, which I do want to touch base quickly on at the end of this. Everybody's got time and families, but I do want to touch base on septic. And it has to be within the current setbacks for the zoning district that it's within. And if it doesn't meet that, then it's no longer a protected ADU, and the petitioner can go seek relief from the zoning board of appeals and say, hey, listen, I need a special permit and or variance for this ADU. It's just not by
Not by
right.
right.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
Yeah. But did I answer your question?
Yeah.
So do you know what that, I don't understand what that paragraph means, because I circled it and have a
I
big question mark there.
Literally, I think we got to go back to the drawing board on this one, because I think what it's saying is,
So it's saying
this
that,
is what I think is what we want to get clarification. And I'll use my property as a perfect example. I've got the barn in my backyard. That's a pre-existing non-conforming structure that it's got power, heat, electricity, and that is literally, not figuratively, on the property line. So that's a pre-existing structure that's non-conforming to the current zoning bylaws. I think we need to address structures like that to say, well, listen, this milk's out of the cow. That would be a protected, that would be protected.
No, I think to your previous point, though, if you wanted to convert that to an ADU, you'd go for a special permit. You wouldn't be able to do it by right.
But seeing is that it's a pre-existing structure that's already there, that's the issue. If you wanted to add a secondary detached structure, that would be a problem.
Well, I'm on the side of town council here of making, for the purposes of this path, making it for stuff that's, meets the code.
And I think, and I'll touch base with Jay on this.
but he refers to, so this is referring to in our code, 174-19 B and C, that's where it says you don't need a special permit for a non-conforming use if A, B, C, D, if, it doesn't have frontage, but everything else is in compliance, that area. So it's saying that it shall conform to that, provided that no special permit may consider the ADU use or impose conditions on such use. So what does that
That's what I
mean?
don't understand, because again, we're back to special permits.
So
And-
I'm wondering if that means that you have to take those things into consideration, but it doesn't require a special permit, like,
So that's where the rubber is going to meet the road, Jesse, because just for example, if I was denied, just for example, I want my dad to move into and they go, nope, you don't meet the requirements for a protected ADU because it's a pre-existing non-conforming, it's on the lot. I'm going to say, wait a minute, I have a right under state law to have a permitted ADU. This is discriminatory on its face because I have this existing structure that's built ready for this use. You want me to move the structure? I've been denied this right. And I think that's an inherent challenge with protected versus
But
unprotected.
you can have, there's another path through special permit.
But I don't think that's the intent of the law. The intent of the law is to provide housing. And when you have a pre-existing structure that's already there, I think that's where the rubber is going to meet the road. That's what the legislature, again, keeps going back to.
So I think just generally, and I agree with you that, there's a need for more housing and more affordable housing. But what we do here in effect is get these mandates and then put in the controls that seem to make sense for the aesthetics and the nature of the town. So not everybody's going to agree with every control that we try to install, but
Yeah, but
what
when
we're
I-
able to do generally, historically, the planning board has done.
I hear what you're
terms of-
saying. I'm just reading from the regs. municipalities shall not prohibit or unreasonably restrict or require other discretionary approval for the use of the land, structures, a single ADU rental and a single family rental
Right, but I
district.
mean, within that, there is a leeway for us to put in some controls.
I'm not saying that there's not, but that's where, town council, but at the same time, people are going to pursue legal action. And it's just something to be thoughtful of.
I do think this is where concrete examples of what you just provided are really good examples,
That's
because
it.
I feel like our town council sometimes will answer us in obscure responses, but to have like a concrete example,
My
and it
house-
will help with town meeting. So I
Yes.
do think having really concrete examples of this example
Right.
from town
I-
council, he says yes or no.
I
and
have,
we
I
make our
have my
decisions around
structure that's under
controls.
900 square feet in my backyard that just happens to be on the property line. What do you mean I can't put?
Yeah,
my parent-
it's a good question
Why-
for
why-
town council.
Why can't I put my parents in there by
Yeah.
right? The law says I can.
And
The
I
town
think
is saying I can't.
I think there's not that many examples in town. I mean, if you think about like how many people have accessory dwellings that meet that
That's just it.
criteria, I don't think it's going to be very
I don't think it's going to be that.
many. Because you had someone come forward that I think was 1,200 or 1,000.
That's it.
that
We
was
just had
special
we just
permit.
had one for 1,200.
Right, right. So I think,
And I think a lot will still need to get special permits because I think in Southborough,
Yeah.
give me a break.
So that's the,
900 square feet.
so that's the other question. If,
Yes.
so the,
Last question.
the ADU by right is a simple majority at town meeting. If we add a special permit to go above 900 square feet, that's 2/3 majority. We lose our simple majority.
I don't. But wait, if you could repeat that, Mimi, because what happens is the regulations are clear from the state that says it can't, once you go over 900, it loses its protected status.
Correct.
So why would we need more?
So there's a question of whether we should allow a special permit to go larger than 900 square feet. So it wouldn't be a protected
I
ADU.
misunderstood your question. Okay.
Yeah. So if we added that into the bylaw, we would require 2/3 majority at town meeting instead of a simple majority for the protected ADU.
Why would we add that? Isn't that kind of an inherent ask, which would require, I'm not meeting any of the requirements to
what I
protect it,
mean.
so I'd need to go to get a special permit anyway?
No,
That's it.
well, no, it doesn't automatically flow. It would be a prohibited use because it's not listed as a allowed use in the code. So the allowed use is the protected ADU 900 square feet or 50% of the square footage of the home, whichever is less. So that's the allowed use. So something that's 60% or over 900 square feet is not an allowed use unless we allow it by special permit in the code.
So why couldn't we just do a separate warrant article for that and have that be the 2/3 majority requirement?
But it would be part of this. Would it be a separate
I'm
code?
thinking separate.
Yeah.
Okay, if we can do that.
So I think this might be a difficult ask to get this through town meeting. And
Yeah.
I actually think we should just stick with the 900 and, see how it goes. Like maybe in the first year, we might say, have all kinds of special permits coming to ZBA, and then we can make that higher by right. I mean, I think when it catches on, people will see the benefit of it and say, gee, my family could benefit from this. I mean, initially, this is what Doris and Andrew and I had been speaking about. We were tasked with trying to go through the code and see where we could, maybe think about ADU before we knew the state was going to be doing something. So I do think it's going to take off, but I think we can start with 900. I mean, I would prefer to start with 900 and not get tangled up with something bigger. I do think people are going to want bigger, but initially to get through, my question was going to be, what do we do about the person who wants to put 2 on their property? Because the way that it's written right now is that only 1 ADU is allowed as a matter of right on any property, but that implies, and the law states, that the second one or more would require special permits. So some towns are saying, no, you only get 1 ADU by right and no special permit.
So that would be the same, If we allowed more than one by special permit, that would be a 2/3.
Okay. I'm not in favor of that one either.
So that's the thing, we can always take another crack at this at subsequent town meetings.
Yeah,
It might make sense to your point to just go forward with this and then deal with the special permit path another time.
Yes, Paul?
Yeah.
Mike?
Paul Carter, 6 Hillside Avenue. One thing that occurs to me is this is kind of like allowing duplexes, okay? It's really that thing. We're allowing 2 families by zoning, which, I think is a good idea, and it's a way of doing duplexes that, is very innocuous. And I think making the separate ADU being no closer to the road than the principal dwelling makes a lot of sense by the reasons that Jesse gave. It says accessory, so it should look like it's accessory. That's one point I would make. The number of curb cuts, I think, and the width of the curb cuts, you can regulate that, or maybe that should be regulated somewhere else. As a transportation engineer, having one 12-foot or having 24-foot, something that is regulated and might make sense, no more than 24, and only one. But I mean, now you can have a circular driveway, but you could define that, a circular driveway, as being acceptable for 2. The other thing is site plan approval. I guess I'm sort of wondering whether you really want to have some differences in rights and restrictions between an attached versus a detached. The detached has a lot more issues, and I think the detached probably should require some site plan approval. The other thing, in terms of a garage, across the street was a very modest dwelling for me. I suggested to the developer he not rebuild the foundation. I got myself in trouble by making some suggestions. So he built a huge house on that existing foundation. He also showed a little small garage next to it. Well, you know what he built? He built a 2-story garage that was as big as my house. Okay. Also, I think this accessory dwelling units, it's important that it only be 1 unit. It can involve garages. The state hasn't suggested that you provide garages for these additional units. You're going to have a lot of trouble at town meeting with doing more than the minimum. The garage thing is just a can of worms. I guess those, I think I would suggest, based on the experience with the 40B, that it stick with the planning board. You involve another board, you're going back and forth, and who has control. I think if there's any way you can just keep it with the planning board, you want to do that. And maybe you want to just do the minimum, as Marty said, to start with, because you want something that's going to get approved at town meeting. And this is going to be really hard to get approved at town meeting as it is with the minimum, without asking for more.
Thank you.
Yeah, I had made that comment about whether we want to have site plan approval for attached or detached, just
Right.
because Paul's definitely correct. I think what the biggest concern of the board are detached and how that's going to look.
Yeah.
So I think that's.
Well,
kinda
my
where the,
thinking is that we kind of do that now, and
Exactly.
they're all usually, well, they're supposed to be attached now. So and it's an abbreviated, it's not like a.
Yeah, I
hearing
just
or
made that
anything.
comment. That's
Yeah.
So I think we need clarification on F and about pre-existing structures. I think those are what I've got a couple other notes. And then unless someone else, I do want to just touch base on Title V.
Just a quick question before you go on. So just for clarity, if this law is by right, if you're under 900 square feet or less, I'm not going to, I don't mean to stir anything, but why wouldn't it just be a building permit, a building commissioner application for a building permit if it's by right?
So the state allows for site plan.
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
But I do think that raises the question to come back to, do all ADUs, do we need site plan, even though it's abbreviated, or it should be specific to detached units need the site plan?
That was my point.
That's on part E. So is it all ADUs or all detached ADUs?
So what's in there now is all. And my feeling was we kind of do that now, that abbreviated, the report is an abbreviated site plan. We're looking at parking and how it fits within the neighborhood and all those site planning things. So my thought was we're just kind of continuing with what we do now, but they don't need to go to the ZBA for a special permit. But that's, a point that we can decide on.
When I
And that
asked
was
this,
when-
when I asked this, I thought you said that it would go through it's kind of a combination of both. That you go to the building inspector and that he would provide you with paperwork. You would write a letter, which is what you do now to the ZBA. And that's all you would need. So it wouldn't be, because I don't know what an abbreviated site plan is, but if you're going to have people start to come here with an engineer and a lawyer and all that stuff, they're not going to do it.
Well, they do now.
They do now if they hire someone like me, but for the most part, you're
Not usually lawyers, but either the developer or the builder or the architect, they usually come in to discuss the ADUs at the planning board. So the abbreviated, in my mind, the abbreviated site plan is the same thing that we do now. And because this protected ADU is under Section 3 and under 40A, it's a Dover protected use, so we can only look at certain things.
I mean, I've been here before with a couple of these and it's been fine, but I'm just thinking about a homeowner, what he wants to do. And
Like, for example, I don't think we've ever required photometrics
No,
or
we can't.
landscaping.
no, you've
It's
already.
really just making sure it's safe.
You already say what you require.
It's pretty basic.
Yeah,
Minimum trees, architectural style,
Adequate
adequate
parking.
water supply and parking.
yeah.
It's
Which
just
is,
like abbreviated site.
which is kind of like what we look at now.
So that would be a discussion item on a planning board agenda.
Yeah.
It's not a minor site plan or a major site plan. It's a discussion item like we do now, planning board report.
Well,
to
so a
ZBA.
minor site plan's a discussion item.
Yes, it is. That's true.
Yeah, so it'd be the
Something
same.
like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. That's right. Okay.
So we need to do regulation. Does Doris have a question on the bylaw before we move on?
I was, am I on? Okay.
You're on.
Okay, great. So I wanted to cite two examples of when we could have a pre-existing non-conforming issue that board came up for special permit. One was an existing structure that was too big and too close to the line. So that was allowed as some type of tool shed. And now they want to make it an ADU. Just try to extrapolate what kind of problem we can come into. So there could be one of those garage barn, whatever that could be on the property. Now that wants to be an ADU, but it could have gone non-conforming, too close to the line. Or it could even be a cabana. We've seen some special permits where they want to be 10 feet and the neighbor's happy with it. So we're putting up a cabana or some type of entertainment room close to the line, and now they want to make it an ADU. That was my only point. So we do have some non-conforming structures out there that could be, now somebody wants to make them an ADU, that could be under
Yeah,
900
there's one on
square foot.
Mike's lot.
I'm right here.
Mike, you got
So
one?
so what town council wrote, I didn't understand, and I
Yeah.
don't think there's great understanding. So we just wanted
I can follow up with Jay on that.
clarification on him.
Yeah.
I think
yeah,
we'll
so
just write him a letter so we get it in writing
got it.
for everybody.
Sure.
Yeah, so there
We don't
are,
want you lawyers talking because I still won't understand it.
yeah.
Trust me,
yeah.
I read this. and I
So-
was like,
So we have enough, I could come up with many examples, we've got enough non-conforming buildings that exist that are detached from the structures that would want, it's almost like changing use, which is a word I probably shouldn't use. It's a
Yeah.
use change.
Okay, I think we're
okay.
going to move on to regulations now.
All right, I'm off. Okay.
You don't have to be off, just
No,
off the
not off,
bylaw.
off. No, just off that bylaw, dear. Okay, yep.
So I have some questions on regulations unless anybody else has questions. No? So here's, and maybe the lawyer in the house can answer this. So an ADU is a self-contained housing unit on the same lot as the principal dwelling.
Correct.
But then the principal dwelling is defined as a structure regardless of whether it conforms to zoning, including use requirements and dimensional requirements such as setbacks, bulk, and height, that contains at least one dwelling unit and is located on the same lot as a protected ADU. So how do you add an ADU to a principal dwelling if the definition of principal dwelling already has a protected ADU on that lot?
No, I don't think that that's the, I think it's a poor draft. I think that's one of the things that's going to be finalized. Basically, you get one bite at the apple.
Right, I understand that.
Okay.
So this is kind of the, which
you
came
reading
first, the
from-
chicken or the egg?
Yeah.
thing?
Are you reading from 7.1.2 definition?
Yeah, the definition. So the definition of principal dwelling says that and is located on the same lot as a protected ADU. So how do you add an ADU to a principal dwelling if by definition, the principal dwelling already has a protected ADU on that lot?
Yeah, and I had like a secondary concern, which is that with the definition of principal dwelling, by saying that it contains at least one dwelling unit, opens the door for multifamilies to add a third or fourth unit through an ADU.
Yeah, that's another
So-
issue.
So I'm reading, I just want to make sure I'm reading from the same, these are the
Yeah,
state
Yeah,
proposed regulations. Single-family residential dwelling, a structure on a lot containing no more than one dwelling unit.
it's so that's a single family residential
Okay,
dwelling.
which one are you reading from?
So look at the definition of ADU,
Okay,
and it references a principal dwelling, not a single family dwelling.
hold on a second.
And then if you look at the definition of principal dwelling, it's a structure that contains at least one dwelling unit and is located on the same lot as a protected use ADU.
I think it should read on the same lot as a proposed protected use ADU.
So the way it's written, it seems to me that it prohibits the creation of ADUs.
No, that contains at least one dwelling unit and is located on the same, it's just not well drafted. I'll submit the comment to the state.
And my other question is, so a principal dwelling can be, 50 units, the way it's defined here. But on the EOHLC website, it defines an ADU as a secondary residential living space on the same lot as a single-family home.
Yeah. I think that's the clearer definition. So basically, multifamily houses have no right for protected use ADUs.
Right,
whatsoever.
but I think that except for the fact that this seems to prohibit them because the principal dwelling already has a protected ADU and you can only do one protected
So
ADU.
what if it, within that definition, we just changed that contains one dwelling unit instead and strike at the words at least?
I think.
So
that's fine.
well, this is a
These are-
comment to the state. These are the
comments
state's
to the
regs.
state.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I think that's what,
I can make a comment to the state. Because you're absolutely right. The way it reads is not great.
and I would think that there would be more comfort in passing this if it's an accessory dwelling on a single-family home and you're not thinking that they're going to be, on mixed use, there's going to be a little dwelling popped up and,
There's going to be a lot of requests, especially like, so in a community like Framingham that already has a lot of like, let's say like duplexes. And those are going to be a challenge. A lot of illegal units are going to want to become legal units now. So that there's going to be a lot of play, less so in Southborough, some, but less so. But it's just an easy pre-existing illegal units, the bonus units is what we call them in the industry, the basement units. We just be like, well, where are the permits for your kitchen, your 220 power? Because the building code requirements mandate that power. Be like, well, where's the permit for that? Oh, you don't have one, you know, it's an illegal unit. So they're going to have to go through the process if that's what they want to do.
And I don't think that the duplexes are, you can't do them on duplex. I
It's
think
my
you can.
understanding that's, yeah.
Well, by definition, on the same lot as the principal dwelling, which is,
Which a duplex is a principal dwelling.
well, yeah, except this definition also has on the same lot as the protected ADU.
Right, but that still allows for two. We have a.
No, you can't do two. You can't do two protected ADUs. There's only one
Right.
on a lot.
But the challenge is if it's a duplex. So
might
you
be
have
able-
two owners, two lots, two houses next door to each other. Because typically they do, not always, but typically they divide the lot. So you could say duplex A gets an ADU and duplex B gets an ADU.
And that's my, we have a bylaw in Chelmsford that's going to be going through a town meeting on the 27th of this month. And the way they wrote it, anything that allows single family can have an ADU, just one by right,
Well, any zone,
any zone.
right, yeah.
And
That's how our bylaw is written.
yeah, so it could be a pre-existing non-conforming lot.
Well, we're talking about two different things.
Yeah.
Any zone that allows single family can allow a protected ADU.
Which includes everything but industrial park, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And-
So there was an email dated December 9th from town council saying that he was going to get us a draft of his draft of the regs, but I didn't see that in the packet.
No,
No,
that was a confusing sentence. He provided us a draft bylaw and then also
didn't do draft
referenced the
regs.
the regulations draft come from E EOHLC.
So he has no, I mean, he did say that the draft regs have some problems. that-
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's our
that's-
draft
so-
that's
regulations
universal.
Understood,
from
but
the state.
did town council do that and address, in his view, the regulations?
No.
The
No.
last I heard him
No.
say anything, there was
Okay.
one question left that they needed to answer.
that, if you want, I can follow up with Mimi and we can just get some questions and pose that to both Jay and I can post comments to the Commonwealth.
Yeah.
I'm working on that with a couple other towns as well. So just for petitioners.
What day is the?
It's the 20th through the 10th. So our time is
The
tight.
10th, yeah.
Friday at
Friday
noon.
at noon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll get something over.
I think, so that's does anyone else have any?
Just a point of clarification. I think when you have a duplex and you have a zero lot line, what they call that, it's still one property. It's a homeowners association that divides who has access.
I agree, but there are some more splits, but I agree with you.
They
that
do.
It is one.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So just in Newport, I've got an issue with that exact
Yeah.
situation going on right now.
The ones I experienced here in Mass.
Yeah, no, this
I
is
think so.
this is down in Rhode Island. So yeah, but that exact issue.
So anything else on regs?
Just
I-
briefly on Title V,
Oh, okay.
just because I think so let's just say you want to build an addition, you want to add a bedroom, you got to meet the septic compliance. The only thing that some towns are having like, well, does that mean adding a leach field? Will that allow for let's say it's a detached, will that allow for a tight tank? And what the flexibility is with the Board of Health and the towns on septic. Like some we want everything. Others are like, well, you have a new tank, but you have capacity for adding to your leach field. Or let's just say this was in Brimfield, like they wanted an ADU all the way back. And they're like, well, we want a tight tank. So, and it's just, what do we want to consider here in Southborough? as far as regulations on stuff like that.
I don't, so can we do any, from the planning board zoning standpoint, can
don't-
we
I don't
do
even
anything
know.
on septic? I would think
don't
that would
even
be the
know.
Board of Health. Maybe we should reach out to them and see if they have
Yeah.
any thoughts on ADU. You know, Paul, you can't speak without a microphone.
No, that's why I wanted to raise it. I didn't think this was the forum, but I figured we should try to
So-
put as many threads together as possible.
Okay, yeah, so we can, do you want to reach out to Board of Health and just see what their thoughts are on ADU?
Sure, usually as part of the public hearing process, we'll take the draft and we submit it to all town departments.
Oh, okay,
But we'll specifically request. them to
okay.
pay
Yeah,
some
put their input
attention.
on this, just
Yeah.
because like that's gonna be an issue for every homeowner. And it's likely going to be the largest expense with adding an ADU.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so like, is the town gonna allow, let's say, again, using me for example, I have a 3-bedroom house. Hey, I'm gonna use one of my interior bedrooms as an office, and I'm gonna make my ADU the 3rd bedroom. Is that okay? Like the bedroom shuffle?
Well, I
tight
think, so I
tanks,
know
those type of
this Board of Health, well, from my experience, because we did an addition and we have a 3-bedroom septic. So I have a deed restriction that says we have a 3-bedroom septic.
But I know we can't do that with this.
Oh,
We can't do deed restrictions.
oh, I don't, so I have no, septic isn't my,
Yeah, no, I just.
my
I wanted
strong
to Put it
suit.
out there because it ties together.
Yeah, no, that's a
everything.
good, that's a good idea, because so everyone
We
in
gotta get on
town
the same
knows what's
page.
happening, yeah.
Exactly.
And
Mr.
before you
Carter.
start, Paul, just one thing to this, just so you notice, building code requirements for a bedroom have certain criteria. It has to have a closet. So if you have a room that has a closet, I'm not sure you can just necessarily say it's not a bedroom, right? Because we've gone through ADU applications where they want to take a room out and call it the lounge area or something, and then they're adding this other accessory unit over the garage. So that had been, sorry, thanks.
Yeah, Paul Carter, 6 Hillside Avenue. I'm glad you brought that up because just like with the MBTA, we talk about zoning, but it's really septic that is
Yeah.
going to control, and that's what's going to control this. I know my lot, it barely perked, and it would have to be a septic system. So yeah, I would really encourage the Board of Health to develop some kind of regulations in parallel with this, because I think you're going to need it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Towns like Westboro are having a real challenge because they've capped single-family construction
Yeah,
because they don't have the capacity
Yeah.
for water and sewer, and people are like, I want my protected ADU.
oh,
So
but, yeah, I don't know. It's a separate, they.
it
can't-
is, but it's the per gallon use is basically theoretically similar. So.
Anything else?
Just Jack, did you have anything further you wanted to add? You've kind of sat here and I'm sure
I-
you
I
took some
just-
notes
I've
and.
Been through some of this process before. I will just mention on the Board of Health, depending, like if it's a shuffle this is how I really think this is gonna work. Somebody's gonna get sick, and then the children are gonna come back or something, and that's what's gonna do. And usually the Board of Health looks at the whole entire thing and says, well, okay. I mean, if you have a cesspool, you're gonna be in trouble, but if you already have a septic and it's working, yeah, there still are.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Oh, yeah. So you have.
Not in my Bartolini built home.
Probably was one at one time. But that's what they've done in the past. They've looked at it and said, okay, we've got mom and dad are going into this unit and the kids are going out, and there's historically no more people here than there was for the last 40 years.
That's the thing is we don't want to build strict rules for DPW. I mean, Board of
Board of Health.
Board of Health,
But
yeah.
to that point, like thinking about just the town meeting and getting this approved, I know it's simple majority, but these types of questions are going to come up.
That's it.
So I think we have to do our due diligence, get everybody weigh in, put a presentation together where everyone is aligned. and it's somehow validated in writing, because I think in history, this is what we've done, but who's to say a new Board of Health inspector comes in and changes the rules?
That's it.
So I think there's got to be something, it doesn't necessarily have to be in this law, but policies or something around ADUs or something we should create. So there's confidence that we know what we're moving
Right,
forward with.
yeah. Good point, Mike, thanks.
No
I
problem.
mean, at the very least, clue other departments in what's going on here.
I've got a bolt. Let's touch base about the language, just because for the regs, and then I'll follow up with Jay, especially on F.
Okay,
Yeah,
perfect.
awesome.
Oh, and we were, if you're going to ask Jay, then on the other things, like why he had that no
Yeah.
further front and
Exactly.
the tandem parking, like
I'll
just
put
to
you on
make
the
sure.
email so we're all on the same page.
Okay,
Just in case I missed something or if you want to tweak something.
awesome.
Awesome.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Doris.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a good
you.
night. I appreciate it.
Tomorrow.
Oh, okay. So I think, we'll go through the hearings and then get back to the proposed zoning amendments. That won't be too long a discussion, I don't think. Okay, we're going to skip ahead to the public hearings because they're all just being extended, so might as well just check those off, and it's definitely after 7 o'clock. So the next item on the agenda is a public hearing, 250 Turnpike Road, Contractors Yard Building. I don't know if you want to speak to this or,
Just quickly, we received extension request signed by the proponent requesting to be continued to January 27th, 2025 at 7 PM with no testimony this evening, and with the board shall have action deadline by the planning board extended to January 31st.
Do you want those in two separate motions or?
can I just make one quick point before? So this is the third extension without testimony, so we should, not now, but for the next meeting, think about how far we want to push this if they're not here next time. Okay, thank you.
I'd like to also just point out that we are meeting for a pre-application for the lid in the near future, just so that you know that.
So the,
1 second. Did you want to speak to this?
So John Palmer, 131 Parkerville, and Karina, I just didn't know if there was a reason given as to why they wanted this to be held over?
No, they provided the extension request, and then I usually follow up if it's not crystal clear, if they are attending the meeting, the public hearing, and are going to provide testimony. And they said, they simply just say no testimony, no reason.
Got it.
So they haven't provided any additional information.
So they're still working through their contractor's yard site plan versus their 40B site plan?
Well, so evidently the 40B is will be before the ZBA.
Yeah.
And there's some issues there because parts of the 40B are on the lot that the contractor's bay is proposed for. So I'm not sure if but they haven't provided any additional information
Yeah.
to us.
They don't need to, right? It was just curious to me as to why they might be deferring the contractor's yard until after the ZBA hearing on the 40B. I didn't know if there was a reason for that.
If there is, we haven't been clued in.
Well, I can just tell you that they said, please continue the hearing on, oh, this was an old one, December 16th without testimony. This is January 6th. I'm sorry. Never mind. That's the wrong
Sorry,
email
Jesse.
I have.
That's okay.
Go
Do
ahead.
you want these on separate motions then, the decision and the continuance, or do you want them on the same? Okay, so the motion is to continue the public hearing for 250 Turnpike Road Contractors Yard Building Major Site Plan Approval to January 27th, 2025 at 7 PM, and the decision deadline to January 31st, 2025.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, Latrell, yes?
Stein, yes?
Houlihan, yes.
Demiria, yes.
Brascio, yes.
The next item on the agenda is a public hearing, 2 East Main Street, mixed-use building, major site plan approval, and 2 East Main Street, mixed-use building, special permit downtown district.
Here's,
So this one, we're still waiting for Fuss and O'Neill, is that?
oh, I'm sorry. Yes, for 2 East Main Street. Major site plan approval and special permit downtown district. Yep, due to the holidays, there was a little bit of a delay in getting peer review comments back. A lot of people had vacation off through January 1st. But I was in touch with Fuss and O'Neill, and they're anticipate by the end of this week that they'll have review comments on these 2 applications for 2 East Main Street.
So for major site plan approval, the decision deadline, if I'm reading this correctly, is January 12th.
Correct. Because the special permit is a 90-day timeframe, and major site plan only has a 60-day time
Right.
to act.
So what was arrived in terms of a decision deadline on that with the proponent, what was decided on?
Right here, Mimi has it in the form. So we'll continue the meeting to
To the
January
27th, yeah.
Yep, I'm asking about the decision deadline.
February 14th?
February 14th, Valentine's Day.
So should I try to get all of this into one?
You can do whatever you
I'm
want.
gonna
Jesse.
try, give it a shot. So the motion is to continue the public hearings for 2 East Main Street mixed-use building, major site plan approval and special permit downtown district. I just realized as I was reading this that there's an issue with that. So are we extending the decision deadline on the special permit downtown district also to February 14th then?
Hold on. The decision deadline for the special permit for downtown district is February 11th. So
Okay.
we're going to February 14th. So,
Was that agreed on with the proponent, though, to also extend the decision deadline for?
no, it's just for major site plan, but we can do that in the next meeting. We can do.
Okay, but I can't make that motion now, right?
No,
Okay.
because it's not signed that way.
So 2 different motions. The first one's going to be to extend the public hearing for 2 East Main Street mixed-use building major site plan approval to January 27th, 2025 at 7:10 PM, and the decision deadline to February 14th, 2025.
Second.
I have a motion and second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, Latrell, yes?
Stein, yes?
Houlihan, yes.
Demiria, yes.
Brascio, yes.
The next motion is to extend the public hearing for 2 East Main Street mixed-use building special permit downtown district to January 27th, 2025, 7:10 PM.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, Latrell, yes?
Stein, yes?
Houlihan, yes.
Demiria, yes.
Brascio, yes.
The next item on the agenda is a public hearing, 26 Meadow Lane, Reservoir Meadows, major site plan approval, and 26 Meadow Lane, Reservoir Meadows, special permit, low impact development, and 26 Meadow Lane, Reservoir Meadows, special permit, major residential flexible development. And this is also, we're waiting for Fuss
Correct.
and O'Neill comment.
Same situation as 2 East Main.
So in that context, then it's the major site plan approval was that extended to February 14? The decision deadline, that is?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm gonna break this up into 2 motions.
Mm.
First motion is to extend the public hearing, 26 Meadow Lane Reservoir Meadows Major Site Plan Approval to January 27th, 2025, and the decision deadline to February 14th, 2025, with the hearing starting at 7:15 PM.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, Latrell, yes?
Stein, yes?
Houlihan, yes.
Demiria, yes.
Brascio, yes.
Next motion is to extend the public hearings for 26 Meadow Lane Reservoir Meadows Special Permit Lower Impact Development and Special Permit Major Residential Development / Flexible Development to January 27th, 2025 at 7:15 PM.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, Latrell, yes?
Stein, yes?
Houlihan, yes.
Demiria, yes.
Brascio, yes.
So now back up to the discussion item, proposed zoning amendments.
Would you like a brief update?
Yes, please.
Um, So we're working on 3 warrant articles, right? It's the ADU bylaw. We have a shared parking amendment for language in the existing code under parking and loading, as well as special permit 174-9. That section needs a clause in there reflecting it's a special permit for shared parking. I can read it here. The working group established with the building commissioner has promulgated an amendment to 174-12 of the code, parking and loading regs, for a planning board special permit for shared parking facilities, i.e. off-street parking serving more than one use or more than one property in a non-residential or mixed-use development. In addition, Section 174-9 special permits will also need to be amended to include language referring to this. Draft copies of what was provided to the planning board at the last meeting were also sent to town council by Lara Davis at ZBA. And I'm waiting to hear back from her when town council has commented on those to see if those are good to go. A copy of the existing draft was provided to Town Administrator Mark Purple for warrant article placeholder, along with the ADU and also along with the industrial park zone additional uses. Right, and as far as the second bullet item there, industrial park zone additional uses, the zoning amendment working group, we're meeting tomorrow afternoon to get some feedback from the building commissioner. We've got some good input. Marnie had provided a compilation of local other towns' uses and what they're called and updating them from night watchman place to something more recent. So we'll be doing that tomorrow. And then if we have some kind of a draft that comes out of that, we'll provide that to the select board as well. So the select board told me, actually Mark Purple told me that the select board will have the ADU and the shared parking bylaw on their agenda tomorrow night in order to refer it to the planning board as required in the process. And then we'll open the public hearings on January 27th. And again, if we have everything in order, we can get the IP uses in the legal ad as well to open on that day. If not, that'll open up the following planning board meeting. Was that clear? That kind of- it's a lot
Rena,
of
can I
info.
ask a question on your working group on the industrial uses? I recently saw that an item on the Board of Health agenda, last couple of agendas, at least the last one, has been complaints of noise on Route 9. I didn't follow up on it, but I was just wondering, I saw some of the uses. Marnie did a tremendous job putting together the list of, what other towns are adding to their industrial use. But I'm just going to ask if anybody from the Board of Health is on your team? No? Okay. I'm kind of curious as to what that was about, but I'm going to imagine it's probably trucking noise. I don't know for sure, but I was going to follow up.
So I and I was talking to Leah, and I think you were copied on the email. We were talking about the industrial park and industrial. And I'm wondering, do we need an industrial park? Like, because I think the thought was that there'd be these like big business campuses, like down, Causland was supposed to be, and it's not going to be. And I don't know if there's really, and so that's why they don't have that many like, retail pedestrian type uses in that, in that zone, because it was, envisioned, like Ken's is industrial park. That's like, but do you think that we will get those types of uses? Do we need a separate zone for that? I was thinking of just combining it, like getting rid of that zone and combining it with the industrial, and then adding, like, seeking thoughts from the board, like with some of these updated uses that would like to add.
So I like the idea. I just feel like throwing that in last minute for a zoning change is going to be really complicated. So I wonder if you just do like a low bar
And
and
add some
modify
uses.
and then come back and have a real discussion around it with people, because it's hard to predict what will happen for future use.
Yeah,
So without a lot of real diligence, I'd say we're too early to make that call.
okay, all right.
That's my vote.
That's an easy route. And the other thing, so we had, so Al Hamilton had sent an email modifying all the business district uses and shifting. So what we have now is we have a list of allowed uses, and anything over 50,000 square feet requires a special permit. He wants to change that to 150,000 square feet because Target, Whole Foods, Home Depot, those types of stores are usually that size, and he thinks that those should all be by right uses, which I have a huge issue with that. And I don't think, going through town meeting, that there was two lots that equaled 6 acres that were multifamily housing by right, caused a lot of anxiety with a lot of people. I can't imagine what changing all the business zones that abut tons of residences to all by right would look like at town meeting.
Just my 2 cents is yet again, like that would require, that's like an overhaul to our entire town, right? So I think that would require diligence meetings, traffic studies, evaluations, investigations. What is the future state? Where it is trending? What's the macro environment? Will those types of business come here if they're 5 miles away? Like, I think there's all those kind of things that I think, again, would require, if he really wants to pursue that, like bring it to a discussion and open it up. And I think that's fine, but I would not support that unless we had any information to actually justify those changes.
Ms. Braccio.
I would just like to, excuse me, thank Marnie for this list. I actually took the time to really go through it, and I think it's great. I mean, almost everything on here, I could be so supportive of. And I think town meeting would be like, yeah, this is great. This is what we need. So major kudos to the group for working on this, but for you, Marnie, specifically for putting this together. I think this is really important. I do, as the discussion continues. So I just wanted to specifically thank you.
So anything else on that? Any comments in the room? No hands up? So we'll be back to you after our, I'll have this conversation again on the 27th. So the next item on the agenda is planners report. Oh, sorry. Thank you. So a discussion on the status of the 40B at 250 Turnpike Road. I think here was to just update, I think it's, and now I forgot, January 18th? So the peer review letter did come in right before Christmas on that. I haven't really had a chance to do a deep dive on that. And I don't think, oh, so it's January 22nd. So we won't have another meeting in order to write a letter, but that's okay. We can discuss it in more depth at our next meeting, the peer review comments and any comments that we have.
Paul Curtis, 6 Hillside Avenue. I sat in on the Conservation Commission hearing, and they were writing a letter back to the ZBA. Mostly it was boilerplate, and mostly it was the same of these plans are garbage. They need to submit good plans. They also mentioned that the face of one face of the building is right on the wetland boundary. So I suspect that this is going to be even worse than the 40B at 120. Basically, they're putting the building in the parking lot, it looks like. So maybe they'll have more flexibility, but doesn't look like it.
Thank you.
Can I add one thing, Mimi, too? One thing I found interesting as I was reading through it is there was question on the driveway coming through the parking lot, which I found very interesting. So again, I didn't do a deep dive, but that was one of the things that initially jumped out at me that we ourselves had talked about. So I'm sure we'll all look through it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda, planners report.
A couple of things briefly. First thing, I failed to mention this at the very beginning. I failed to mention this at the very, we've contracted a new recording clerk, Sue Pagini. She was in the past a resident at Lattisquama Road for many years. Now she lives not in Southborough, but we interviewed her and another candidate or two, and she was the most qualified. So she's actually going to start with tonight's meeting and do a couple of meetings that we've had in the past just to catch us up. So just want to welcome her. The contract is signed, just has to go to accounting tomorrow, and we'll be back in business.
Congratulations. That's exciting.
Yes, it is.
Welcome.
And there'll be, at some point, she'll attend the meeting and you can meet her via the Zoom.
Welcome.
Try and be on at the beginning of the meeting because she's up in Maine today, so she's probably not on now. There's a new Permit Extension Act from November 13th, 2024. Town Council provided an advisory back in November. Conservation Agent Melissa sent it to me recently, as she had just gotten it as well, tolling some of the permits, and there's some implications to zoning and site plan, like we usually say 1 year extension. The site plan's good for 1 year, and then you get a 1 year extension. There are newer rules now that will extend that to longer.
So is it that only, there's like the dates from January 1st, 2023 till January 1st, 2025. So does that mean moving forward, like if we were to issue an approval today, that would be back to the 1 year?
I have to look at it fully. I haven't vetted the whole thing, but I think there's two parts to this. It's that tolling for that time period for certain projects, and it exempts certain environmental permits. But then there's also some changes to the general law about special permit timeframes and site plan extensions. So I have to look.
So site plan's not in general law.
Right, right, but there's some kind of reference to it, and I can't speak to it really smartly right now, which I'd like to, but I have to read it all first, so, I'll get to that. What do you see? Hold on a second. So the next thing is, hold on, well, discombobulated here. The on-call consultant contract is almost there for niche engineering. The consultant had a couple of changes to the contract that they're working out with the town administrator. So it's my understanding that we have the insurance certificate. Town administrator does, but, and the changes that were requested by the consultant, I think were approved by town council. This is third-party hearsay. And now it's just back for the consultant to sign it. And soon as that comes in, then we'll continue moving forward with them on new projects. So, I already talked about the annual town meeting schedule, the public hearings that we're gonna start. And that's it for tonight, unless anybody has anything that I missed.
Nope.
That's it. Okay, thanks.
So the next item on the agenda would be minutes.
So before I make a motion on this, concern I have is, okay, well, let's go this route. I'll make the motion for discussion that the planning board approve meeting minutes from Monday, November 4th, 2024.
Second for discussion?
So,
You were here.
right. So I'm wondering if, if they thought, if the person, I'm sorry, I'm not sure who did the minutes.
Colleen did these minutes.
You did them. Okay.
Yes.
So I was present physically. Sorry?
I didn't know I didn't have you in there.
You, according to the minutes, I was present via Zoom at the top, if I'm reading this correctly. It says members present, Amy Latrell, Marty Hulan, Deb DeMaria, Lisa Braccio, member present via Zoom, Jesse Snide. I was physically present for this meeting.
I remember that.
And I'm just wondering, do you want to go back and review?
I did. I looked at the meeting and I said,
You
oh,
did?
there's Jesse.
No, but I mean, is the rest of it, I'm just wondering, I want to make sure.
I
that
have
there's
I have a lot of comments if
I do
no one
too.
else has had a chance to look at
I
it.
haven't had a chance
I
to
have.
check versus,
Yeah.
memory versus actual, so.
I got some comments from Marnie as well, so we can wait. I'll get those all.
Should we
put in
do it
there.
that way? Okay, then I'll withdraw the motion.
Okay, so do you want me to just email my comments to you?
Mine as well.
Please.
Oh, okay.
I have
All right.
some too.
Yeah.
Yes, please email them separately. Oh, it has to be separate because you're not all.
Yep, thank you.
It's the other way around. Good. Oh, thanks.
Thank you. That's our crack planning department.
The best in the Commonwealth.
As simple and as clear as it can be, probably is what you want to stick with, because you know what happens at town. People just get lost.
We can't hear a word you're saying.
You can't.
I think we've moved on from that agenda
Yeah.
item, Mr.
Yeah.
Carter, so
Yeah.
have a good night.
Have a good night. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
I have a motion in a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, Latrell, yes?
Stein, yes?
Houlihan, yes.
Demiria, yes.
Russia, yes.
We're gonna stop the recording. We're just gonna stop the recording.